Hi guys, today me and my brother are reacting to this channel history. You guys probably know his story, so yeah, today we are gonna react to it. The first one,
I handed the keys.
it's called The Wallet. The wallet took my Lambo. Okay.
To my Lambo to the valet. Be careful with this. Of course, sir, she won't move an inch. But as I walked into the restaurant, my phone buzzed with a dash cam alert, and I opened a live feed of the valet flying the Lambo down the street. My jaw dropped. I immediately waved a taxi over, jumped in, and pointed through the windshield. Follow that car. I borrowed that car from my father-in-law. If I can't return it in one piece, I'm cooked. The driver looked at me, nodded, and took off behind it. My eyes kept jumping between the windshield and the feed. He swerved my car through traffic, then pulled over, and I sighed, thinking he was just going to park it. But then a guy in a hoodie hopped into my passenger seat and planted his sneakers on my dash. My grip nearly cracked my phone. The taxi driver glanced at my screen. Wait, that's live? I nodded, and he leaned into the wheel, weaving between lanes like it was his car out there. The valet swung into a drive-thru, and I watched him order a milkshake out of my window while my jaw slowly tightened. He revved my engine at the next red light, and every rev, I gripped the seat harder. But then we pulled up right beside the Lambo. I was close enough to knock on my own window, but the stupid valet was too busy showing his friend how my seats reclined all the way back. The taxi driver looked at me. I just shook my head. Not yet. Then the feed.
Okay, guys, from this, seriously, the valet is evil. But is he gonna steal the Lambo? We'll see.
Feed showed him dropping his friend and turning onto a familiar street. I grinned because he was looping back to the lot. I told the driver, cut down that side street and drop me at the valet stand first. I straightened my jacket, held my phone flat against my leg, and waited. A minute later, the Lambo rolled in. I watched him wipe my seats with his sleeve and spray cologne over everything his friend touched. Then he jogged over, dropped my keys into my hand, and smiled. She never moved an inch, sir. I closed my fist around the keys. But just as I was about to show him the recording, a voice came from behind him. She never moved an inch. The valet spun around, and my father-in-law was standing there, holding up his own phone. Both me and the valet went white in the fact at the same time. My father-in-law plucked his keys out of my hand, my car, my dash cam. Who do you think gets the alerts? I'm suing whoever drove it. I leaned in close to the valet. Turns out, I'm not the one who's cooked. Behind me, the taxi driver honked twice on his way out. I handed the keys to my...
Okay, that was interesting. The valet is good because he returned the Lambo, but he didn't have to lie. Okay, I rate this 8.5. Your brother?
I rate it an 8.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, let me. Bobby broke my. What the hell?
Hammock.
Okay, let's see this.
Down in the hammock, I spent all afternoon setting up, enjoying the breeze, when I felt a pair of chubby fingers gripping my fabric. The neighborhood fat kid was pushing me out of the hammock, gasping, "I want it," already out of breath from just talking. He pushed me off as my face hit the dirt, and he slowly climbed into my hammock, his gargantuan stomach pointing roundly at the air as he lay down. His massive weight was already bending the trees, so
Okay, I have to say something. He's so fat.
I got up and told him, "Bobby, you're gonna snap my hammock." He went to say he wouldn't, but that's when the tree cracked. The hammock snapped, and Bobby crashed so hard I felt a mini tremor. I facepalmed, but Bobby just lay on the dirt in the same relaxed position with my hammock trapped under him, completely unbothered that his weight just snapped an oak tree. I kicked his
Bro, an oak tree? What is he? An elephant? Nah, he's a chubby boy.
flaps. "Bobby, get up," but he waved his arm. "Nah, too much effort." He placed his hands over his stomach and rolled his head
Too much effort? Seriously? Too much effort?
back, closing his eyes. I grabbed my hammock and pulled as hard as I could, but immediately realized this was something King Arthur couldn't pull out. Bobby had now started drifting to sleep, so I tried moving him myself, but my back only shot pain in the process. I looked at my hammock collecting dirt under his butt sweat and knew there was only one way. I climbed into my dad's excavator, my hands shaking with rage. Last chance, Bobby, get up or you're getting excavated. But Bobby was peacefully snoring in the dirt. I pressed the lever and scooped Bobby up. I raised him in the air, but just as I was about to drop him, I heard him yell, "Wait, leave me here. This is like a hammock." My jaw dropped and I climbed out, but Bobby was already snoring again in the arm of the excavator. I shook my head, then set my hammock back up. Now both of us were enjoying the breeze. I laid down in the hammock I'd spent.
That's you. My God. I read this a 9, man. 9 for me.
Me too.
Man. You know, guys, I'll subscribe for him. Next one. Okay.
My best friend
$100 versus 1,000 whoops. Okay.
John pointed at a wasp nest and said, "Tom Brady moment. If you hit the nest, I'll give you $50. Then my other friend Ivan slammed his hand on the table. Double it. I'm in. We tiptoed over to inspect it, and up close it was like 2 basketballs hanging off a tree branch. Easily the biggest nest I'd ever seen. John scooped up the football and said, "Hit it and make it inside without getting stung." Then tossed me the ball. I stood there staring at it, because $100 for one throw and a sprint was easy money. But when I looked back, they were both already crouched behind the patio chairs, and something felt off. If this went
Okay, I'll say something right now. If I was that kid, I would tell them $1,000. Seriously, I hate wops.
went wrong, nothing was stopping them from locking me out. I lined up my throw, but a single wasp buzzed past my ear, and I dropped the ball like it was on fire, and both of them fell out laughing behind the chairs. I picked it back up, wiped my hands on my shorts, took a breath, and nailed the nest dead center. It hit the grass, and the sky turned into a black cloud, so I took off for the door. But when I looked back to check the swarm, I plowed straight into both of them, and all three of us ate grass. I scrambled up first, shoved them back down, and dove inside, locking the door behind me. If anyone was getting locked out today, it wasn't going to be me. They slammed against the glass, screaming, "Open the door!" while the swarm caught up, and they danced around swatting at their own heads. I gave them 3 seconds, then flipped the lock, and they fell inside, slapping wasps off each other. John was on the floor, crying, laughing because Ivan got stung right on the butt. I held out my hand and said, "I did my dare, pay up," and they each slapped a 50 into my palm. My best friend...
Okay, seriously, in your butt? Seriously? On Nah. Okay. Wait, can we do it on... Yeah, popular. 78 million views?
My twin brother Chris and I were 9 when we learned
Okay, he tapped the back. Okay.
Morse code. We tapped messages under the dinner table when Mom told us to stop talking, and tapped through the wall between our bedrooms every night. When Chris got into a car accident and the doctor said he'd never wake up, I pulled up a chair next to his bed, took his hand, and tapped. "Are you there?" Nothing. But I came back the next afternoon and tapped again. Before I left, I always said the same thing. "See you tomorrow, Chris." A week later, Chris's fingers twitched against mine, and I almost fell out of my chair. I grabbed a nurse and she barely looked up. They're reflexes. It doesn't mean anything. I bought a notebook the next...
Seriously? Reflexes? Man, you gotta believe the little boy.
The next day and started writing down every single one. 4 months in, Mom watched me scribbling and said, "How long are you going to keep doing this?" "Until he taps back." "He's not going to tap back. You're talking to a corpse." Dad lasted a few more months before he pulled me into the hallway. "We need to talk about donating your brother's organs. His fingers move every time I hold his hand, Dad. The nurses said those are reflexes. Stop getting your hopes up, son. I don't care what the nurses say. You're not donating my brother's organs." But a week later, my parents called to have Chris transferred to a long-term facility to die, and scheduled a meeting to sign the papers. The afternoon before the meeting, I tapped into his palm like always, but this time, something tapped back. Short, short, short. Long, long, long. Short, short, short. SOS. I grabbed his hand. "Chris, if that's you, squeeze once." He squeezed so hard my knuckles cracked. I stormed into the meeting room and told them my brother just responded to me. The caseworker said, "This is very common with families who aren't ready to let go." My parents nodded. I grabbed the transfer papers off the table. "You're not signing anything until you come see for yourself." I walked them to Chris's bed and grabbed his hand. friend. Ask him anything. The caseworker asked what year it was. Chris squeezed out the answer. Count to 5. 5 perfect squeezes. His mother's name, tapped out letter by letter. By the 10th question, she said, he's still alive. We can't move him. Weeks later, I asked Chris what kept him fighting when everyone gave up. Heard mom call me a corpse. Heard dad say donate my organs. Heard all of them leave, except you. I asked why. I wanted to see you too. My twin brother...
Oh, that's cute. That's seriously good. Okay. Let's see this.
The flight attendant slipped me a napkin that said...
So, that's not Captain Hopkins. Okay, let me see.
The pilot isn't who he says he is. Meet me in the back to talk. I knew she chose to tell me because of the military dog tags around my neck. I folded the napkin and slid it into my pocket, and that's when the captain's voice came over the intercom. Good morning, folks. This is Captain Hopkins, expecting smooth skies to Chicago, but something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones. I waited 2 minutes and casually walked to the back, not knowing what to expect. The flight attendant was there with a man holding up a police badge. The man whispered, "I'm glad you're here. I'm an undercover cop." I knew something was wrong straight away. The flight attendant whispered, "I've flown with Captain Hopkins for 6 years."
Okay, guys. I don't know if you guys saw it, but look at the girl.
Waited 2 minutes and casually walked to the back, not knowing what to expect. The flight attendant was there with a man holding up a police badge. The man whispered, "I'm glad you're here. I'm an undercover cop." I knew something was wrong straight away. The flight attendant whispered, "I've flown with Captain Hopkins for 6 years. I don't exactly know what's wrong, but I know that's not Hopkins, and we're flying the wrong way." She showed me the flight map of where we were heading. The plane is heading toward an abandoned airport. I leaned over the map. My body was pumping with adrenaline because it was the perfect place to crash a plane. There's an empty space above the pilot's room. I can climb up and listen to what the pilot and co-pilot are planning through the ceiling. Take my number. If you can tell there's something fishy going on, text me one word, now. That's the signal to move. And to distract everyone while I climbed above the ceiling, the flight attendant made an announcement on the speakers to tell everyone to keep their seatbelts on. Through the cracks, I could hear 2 men in the pilot's room talking. 15 years ago today, our brother died because of Captain Hopkins. Now we get to crash his plane with him tied up on it while we impersonate him. I texted the undercover cop. Now, the cart slammed into the pilot's room door, and the cop kicked it open. I dropped through the ceiling and tackled the fake pilot out of his seat. The cop pinned the co-pilot to the floor. The flight attendant grabbed the radio. "Mayday, our pilot is gone. We need help landing right now." She looked at me. "Find Hopkins, the actual pilot. He has to be on this plane somewhere." I sprinted to the back of the plane, checking every door. I yanked open the closet next to the bathrooms, and Captain Hopkins was inside with his hands tied and tape across his mouth. I ripped the tape off. "Get me to the controls." He ran to the front and dropped into the pilot's chair. He grabbed the wheel. "Tower, this is the real Captain Hopkins. I'm landing this plane." When we finally landed, the cops dragged the brothers off in handcuffs. The flight attendant came up to me in the aisle. I pulled the napkin out of my pocket and held it up. "You saved 200 lives with this." She smiled and took it back. The flight attendant...
Okay, 200 lives? That's a 10 out of 10. Seriously.
Me too.
Okay, let me see this.
My daughter came home crying with an F because
her teacher gives her an F for being right. Okay.
She doesn't know what color blood is. The first time I realized something was wrong, Riley came home from school holding out her arm. "Look, Dad, you can see the blue blood in my veins right here." She traced the blue lines under her skin with her finger. I put down my coffee and looked at her. "Actually, sweetheart, that's not true. Blood is always red because of hemoglobin. It's just darker red in your veins." Her face scrunched up, but Mrs. Miller showed us a whole PowerPoint about it. She even had diagrams from a science book. The next morning, I packed my work scrubs in my bag. I'm an ER nurse at Mercy General, and I was working the afternoon shift anyway. I sent Mrs. Miller an email asking if I could do a quick presentation about blood for career day that afternoon. She loved the idea. When I arrived, Mrs. Miller introduced me as Riley's dad who works at the hospital. 28 kids stared up at me from their desks. "I heard you guys learned that blood is blue inside your body," I said. The entire class nodded enthusiastically. Mrs. Miller beamed from her desk in the corner. I pulled out a blood collection tube from my pocket and held it up. "This is what we use to draw blood at the hospital. Notice something. The tube creates a vacuum. No oxygen inside at all." I paused. "When we draw blood with these, it never touches oxygen until we pop the cap off." I showed them photos on my phone of sealed blood tubes. "See? Still red." Mrs. Miller's smile started fading. She shifted in her chair and cleared her throat. A boy raised his hand and pointed to their science textbook. "But our textbook says it's blue." I picked up the book and checked the publication date, 1998. Medicine updates pretty fast. We used to think lots of things that turned out to be wrong. Mrs. Miller suddenly stood up from her desk, her hands gripping the edge. "Well, thank you for that interesting presentation, Mr. Johnson, but we need to move on to math now." I nodded and started packing. talking when a girl in the back raised her hand. So our textbook is wrong? The class erupted in whispers. Mrs. Miller's jaw clenched and her voice got tight. The curriculum says, actually, I interrupted, pulling up the state science standards on my phone. I walked over and turned my phone toward her. The current curriculum specifically mentions this myth as something to correct. She stared at the screen and her eyes narrowed. Her mouth pressed into a thin line and her nostrils flared. Can I speak with you in the hallway? The kids watched as we walked out and the door closed behind us. Do you have any idea how hard it is when parents undermine my authority? Her face was red and her voice was sharp. Now they'll question everything I say. I kept my voice calm. Isn't that exactly what we want them to do? Question things and learn critical thinking? She crossed her arms tightly. I've been teaching for 22 years. I'm not changing my whole curriculum because some nurse thinks he knows better than our textbooks.
He's a nurse. He works in a literal hospital.
The next day, I found out Mrs. Miller gave the class a pop quiz. Riley came home crying, her face red and puffy. Her hands were shaking as she handed me a paper with a big red F on it. I took a deep breath and felt my jaw tighten as I looked at the question. What color is...
That's not a quiz. One question is a quiz. Seriously?
There is blood inside the body. Riley had written red, and Mrs. Miller had marked it wrong. I requested a meeting with Principal Davis and brought printouts of medical textbooks, the state science standards, and Riley's quiz. The principal called in Mrs. Miller and asked her directly, is blood blue inside the body? After a long pause, Mrs. Miller said, it's what the children understand better. I leaned forward in my chair. My daughter is crying every morning before school because she's afraid of getting F's for writing down the truth. The next day, the school replaced their science books. Now whenever Riley learns something new at school, she comes home and asks me, Dad, is this actually true, or is it just a Mrs. Miller truth? My daughter came home.
Mrs. Miller truth. Okay, that I like that. Seriously, I like that. Okay.
Every time we heard a knock on the front door, my dad would yell, stealth mode, and we had 30 seconds to kill every light in the house. My brother and I would race through the rooms, flipping switches, yanking cords, shutting off the TV mid-show, while some guy outside banged on the front door yelling, I know you're in there, buddy. Dad timed us. Once everything was dark, no talking, no moving, no looking out the windows. We'd sit there until Dad did his owl hoot, which meant all clear. Sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes almost an hour. Afterwards, he'd high-five us and go, real ninjas couldn't do better. He told us stealth mode was top secret. Never tell your teachers, your friends, nobody. Other people wouldn't understand. For years, I believed him. When I was 8, I asked Dad why we had to hide so much. He said some annoying guy kept bothering our family, and stealth mode was how we dealt with him. I felt proud we had a secret skill that could outsmart bad guys. By the time I was 10, I heard the voice outside yell something about a bet and $20. I tugged Dad's sleeve and whispered, is the bad guy trying to steal our money? Dad shushed me so hard I flinched. When I was 12, I broke the window rule, peeked through the blinds, and saw a completely normal guy in a polo shirt standing on the porch rubbing his forehead. He didn't look like a criminal. He looked like someone's tired uncle. At 13, I told Dad I was just going to open the door and tell the guy to leave us alone. The color left his face. You absolutely cannot do that. That was the first time stealth mode didn't feel like a game. By 15 or 16, it barely happened anymore. But when it did, Dad would peek through the blinds looking guilty. Mom just shook her head from the couch and muttered something under her breath. I was 17 and home alone when I heard it. I know you're in there. It's been 12 years, man. I opened the front door. The guy nearly fell backwards. Normal-looking dude, middle-aged, holding a crumpled piece of paper. Oh, hi. Is your dad home? I'm his old college roommate. He held up the paper. Your old man bet me $20 Michael Jordan wouldn't win his 6th ring. That was 1998. I've been knocking on his door ever since. He handed me the IOU, both their signatures, right there at the bottom. I left it on the kitchen table. Mom saw it first and laughed so hard she had to hold the counter. Dad picked it up, read it, put it back down, and the first thing out of his mouth was, so now he knows someone's home. Then he turned off the kitchen light and got under the table. We were never in danger. My dad just lost a bet because of the greatest of all time.
Okay, a bet for $20? Seriously? 12 years? For $20? Man.
They're just out of their minds.
Okay guys, that will be it for today. I hope you guys like this video. Yeah, if you guys aren't already subscribed, please like and subscribe. Bye.
Bye.